So welcome to everybody and many thanks for attending today. Today we're launching a report that we've created in conjunction with the London Friends of Green Spaces Network and Parks for London. So I'm from CPRE London. I'm Alice Roberts, the head of campaigns here. We work closely with a number of groups relating to parks and volunteering to offer support to Friends groups and to try to build the Friends group movement. So one of the things we wanted to do was to really just try to highlight just how big a contribution Friends groups make, Park Friends groups makes, but also more generally the green space volunteering movement, to kind of try to demonstrate that movement is a great deal stronger in some parts of London than others, but also to try to kind of show what kinds of things that councils are already doing or boroughs are doing, that Friends groups are doing themselves, and that others are doing to try to promote and support this movement to grow. So I'm going to do a short presentation on the report first, and then we're going to hear from various people. So we're going to hear from Dave Morris, who's the chair of London Friends of Green Spaces Network, from Tony Leach from Parks for London, which represents local authorities in London, Mark Cridge from London National Park City Foundation, and then we'll go on to some Q&A. So before I start, I think John, my colleague John, is going to paste, or has done, pasted the link to our news article on this, where you can find the report, and also our presentation that I'm about to make will also is also on that page. So hopefully, you know, if you need that or would like other people to look at it, it will be there. So without further ado, I'm going to go on and try to share my screen in the usual way. Right, well, here we go. So. I can do it that way. Yeah. Okay, so which London boroughs are gaining the most from Parks Friends groups? This is our partnership. We work in partnership to promote the Park Friends groups and to really try to grow and develop that movement with Parks for London, as I said, LFGN, but we also work with the London Parks and Gardens Trust, who are not able to be with us today, but they largely deal with, I should say, they represent the parks and gardens in London, which are of historic value and interest, and the London National Park City. And also we've worked closely with GiGL in the past too, with our Go Parks London project. So Go Parks London is a project that brings all this together, which we lead along with all of our partners, has been supported in the past by the Mayor of London, the City of London via their City Bridge Trust, the Community Fund and others, and voluntary contributions. So that's, I think, as I said, we're going to hear from a number of people today. So yeah, moving swiftly on, the first thing that I wanted to show you from the report is the number of Friends groups in each borough. So this is the page where with outer London boroughs in. I've split them into outer boroughs and inner boroughs, just because sometimes it's easier for people in those boroughs to see a comparison with boroughs which are more like them, I suppose. So although it's a bit clunky, that's how I've done it. So you can see that the first columns there, the numbers 2 and 3, and at the top show the number of Friends groups reported by boroughs. They do this when Parks for London do their Good Parks for London report once a year. On the right, you have those which have registered with our project, which is our Go Parks London project. So there is quite a difference there. But hopefully those two figures give an idea of where Friends group movement, let's say, is strongest and where it might be not so strong. So the For the inner London boroughs, again, it's a very varied but very varied picture. So you can see the numbers in columns 2 and 3 there. I'm going to skip back one slide here because I want to show you what we're doing with the other columns here. So we also wanted to know whether there was a borough friends group forum. So this is where all the friends groups get together and create a forum and try to work together to make things happen that are useful for them. So they would, we'll talk a bit about that later and why that's really important. I'll get Dave, the chair of London Friends Group Network, to talk about that, and I've got a slide on it in a moment. But there are a lot of boroughs. If I click backwards and forwards now, you can see this column. There are now a lot of boroughs which have a Friends Forum, and that's changed quite a lot in the last few years, so that's really good. But there are still some where we don't know or they're not very active. So we definitely feel that those boroughs, we'd really like to work with them to make sure that they have an active forum. Some of them have a forum, but we're not sure if they're very active. Some of them, the forum isn't independent, so we prefer for forums to be independent because it has various benefits. And again, I'll get Dave to talk about that in a moment. And lastly, the column shows if the borough has a Go Parks London promotions campaign, and that's where we have worked with them to launch a set of promotions which promotes volunteering in green spaces alongside both the borough and the friends groups. So looking at all of that as a whole, there are 926 park friends groups in London. 441 are now registered with the Go Parks London project, which means that they'll be directly benefiting from the support via that project. The number of groups in each borough ranges from just a few to over 50. There's a friends group forum in 23 of 33 boroughs. 13 of these are very active and 15 are independent of the council. Via our Go Parks London project, as I said, we've supported promotions campaigns in 17 boroughs to date, but we aim to be supporting all boroughs eventually. So the boroughs which we feel are gaining most benefits from park friends groups on the basis of the forums that they have and the active nature of that forum, whether it's independent and whether they have a Go Parks campaign, would be the ones that you see here: Barnet, Bromley, Brent, Merton, Haringey, Islington and Wandsworth. That doesn't necessarily mean that those are the ones with the most friends groups, but this was the cut that we decided to look at. But we could have focused more on the numbers of friends groups as reported as well. And really what we want to see is just the whole picture and to try to just help anyone, boroughs, friends groups or local people, whoever it is, to do more to promote this movement. And so many more people can gain the benefits of what friends groups do. So I also wanted to just mention that there are a few other things that so Laura, who works on Go Parks London for us, has unfortunately developed COVID, so is not able to speak today. But she did send one reflection, which I thought was really worth mentioning, which was that increasing numbers of councils now have a member of staff at least part-time allocated to supporting friends groups. She said it's something she's seeing more of. She had no comprehensive data, but mentioned Sutton, Wandsworth, Barking, Dagenham, Haringey, Lewisham, Kingston, Merton and Westminster. Some use it very effectively to get new groups started, to support bid writing, for example, to hold events and so forth. She said, I think the councils who offer at least something of this type of support often tend to have a tighter link to friends groups than those who don't. So we also wanted to just reflect on the the way that councils can benefit and how much they can, how much that they appreciate the support of friends groups too. So this was a quote which was from the Parks for London launch actually last year, I think it was 2022, yeah. So where Catherine Rose, who's a councillor in Southwark, said that the award, she said this award will mean the most to the hundreds of volunteers and members of all our friends groups, all 76 of the groups, who generate thousands of hours in added value to our parks and regular challenge and buckets of wisdom. And I receive this award on their behalf and I dedicate it to them. And you'll probably have noticed that Southwark wasn't in our list of groups with very active forums. So we feel that even where there are lots of friends groups, there's always more that can be done. So the other thing that we did as part of this report was to survey friends groups, and this is we got an amazing response. We asked friends groups, and we had something like now I can't remember, 69 responses, and we asked what were your group's top achievements in 2022? What improvements did you make to your site in 2020? Did you hold any community events to encourage people into the site? And what challenges did you encounter? And I tried really hard to summarise all of that, but it was impossible basically. So what I did was, if you go to the report and go to the end, you'll see that I've highlighted in bold words, which try to make it a bit easier to read all of the responses, but all of the responses are in there in detail because it just shows how extraordinary the breadth of what friends groups do. It's just extraordinary. So I have, however, tried here to summarise it very quickly. So this is the top achievements here, and I'm not even sure if I can if it's if I can read it all out. But there's always loads of bulb, tree, hedge, flower bed, and wildflower, wild trail, repainting, heritage railings. Sorry, it's you can just read this yourselves. I think is probably best at your leisure. But yeah, as I say, really interesting breadth. Everything from pride events to just basic maintenance and litter picking, 1 o'clock clubs, jubilee celebrations, wildlife recording, very important. Putting up back boxes, encouraging wildlife, all kinds of stuff. So the improvements that they made, this is a slightly different take on the first question, and again, lots and lots and lots of different inputs, everything from chess tables to getting rid of graffiti to putting in zebra crossings to make access to the park better. I was particularly keen to understand this aspect of what friends groups do, which is helping people to gain the benefits of parks by holding events. And so we did ask a question about that specifically, and it's just really worth having a look at that again. Everything from dog shows to carols in the park at Christmas, pumpkin carving, nature walks, history tours, a refugee picnic there, sports days, volunteering, lots of volunteering days, obviously, and so on. And then finally, the challenges, and I was really pleased to see that there wasn't a huge amount of negativity or anything like that. There was the most challenging things that people found was weather, drought, flooding, heat, and water sources last year were by far the most mentioned. There were also some problems with litter, fly tipping, and vandalism. In terms of the kinds of things that they could be supported with, they're always struggling to find volunteers. Well, actually, that's not always the case, but many groups do find it hard to find volunteers. But they especially mention volunteers who can help with the committee, and that was more than once mentioned. They did occasionally mention that communicating with the council can be difficult, and are always keen to improve communications with the council. And sometimes, but not always, money is an issue. Actually, in fact, many groups are extremely resourceful at finding money, for the park and for activities. So yeah, that's me. I hope that gives you a good canter through of the report. And now I'm going to hand over to Dave Morris, Chair of London Friends of Green Spaces Network, to give a bit of a perspective from the Friends point of view. Dave.
Okay, thanks a lot. Can you hear me okay? Right, well, I was going to say why friends groups and what do we do and how can we do it better? But actually, I think the report and the presentation answers a lot of those points, just the incredible range of activities and improvements that friends groups can achieve. But don't just take it from us and take it from the groups, but also I'll just quote you here from Haringey Council's Parks and Green Spaces strategy, because I'm based in Haringey. And this is what they say under their heading 8 partners. Friends of Parks groups. There are at least 50 Friends of Parks groups in Haringey who have joined together to help promote, animate, improve and protect their local park. Friends groups improve parks through undertaking practical tasks, fundraise for and provide events and activities, bring local people together and tend to know what's happening in their local parks. They report maintenance issues, fundraise for improvements, help develop long-term vision for a site, and generally engage with management. They also talk then about the Haringey Friends of Parks Forum, which is the key borough-wide partner and very important. So I think it's really important that friends groups and local authorities work closely together. The London network is of 900 plus groups. It's quite an active network, and we're trying to promote a friends group for every green space in London and a forum for every borough. And in terms of why forums are so important, is because it overcomes isolation. If you're a group that you're part of something, a family of groups, you can share good practice, you can take up issues collectively, obviously with the local authority, but also others. And most importantly, I suppose, you can partner with your local borough as an equal partner in trying to improve all the green spaces in that borough. So I think the question really is, how can we achieve that better? I think the fundamental starting point is to recognise the importance of such community groups and recognise the importance of having forums and collaboration and partnership with the local authority. And of course, the support can be both ways and needs to be developed. A relationship takes time to build at a site level and in terms of a borough-wide level, but it's always worth doing that. So finally, the London Friends of Green Spaces Network and Go Parks do monthly bulletins for all friends groups and anyone interested, and we together can help friends groups or local authorities in helping to establish local forums and work better together.
That's great, thanks Dave. So we're now going to hear from Tony Leach, who's from Parks for London. Tony, you can introduce yourself and give us a bit of a perspective from the London boroughs.
Thanks very much, Alice. Hello, everyone. This report's really something to celebrate, because to go past 900 is amazing. But before I say a bit more, just very briefly, Parks for London is a charity that works across London. You probably know about us. If you want to know more, just Google us and you'll find out more. And I won't waste time talking about us, but this hasn't happened overnight. The creation of these networks, as Dave has already alluded to, takes time. And if I think back I guess it must be over 15 years that Dave and I have been working together. We started with a humble, probably 200 groups across London, and it's really been a story of organic growth. And it's something that can't be done overnight. And I think what has developed is a very strong network, thanks to Dave and others, to create something that will last and will grow and is having increasing impact. And that is primarily also through the development of the borough-wide forums, because as we all know, boroughs struggle with resources. And so to be involved intimately with every friends group within their borough would be almost impossible. But to work through a forum where common issues are addressed is very effective use of time. And no two friends groups, no two boroughs are identical. Everything, the diversity of what's come out of the report in terms of the activities is reflective of the different types of spaces that London has and the different communities that live there. And that's one of the very rich things that we should be celebrating. And I think what is now happening is that well, what used to happen was there was a lot of antagonism between friends groups and councils. That has matured, and people have grown up to realize that they need each other. And we're seeing a lot more collaboration between boroughs. I think the key ingredients to a successful partnership in this sector is about just keeping the lines of communication open, being available to talk and share information. One of the biggest barriers has been where there's been mistrust about what councils are doing or trying to do. And by having an open and honest conversation between the partners, it has really helped this process. And some boroughs help the friends groups by providing small grants or access to offices or meeting places. It varies a lot, but I don't think well, let's put it this way. I think the incredible contribution that friends and friends groups provide to their local parks is huge. And what we do through Good Parks for London is we keep a tally of the numbers of friends groups and also the number of borough forum. But what we're trying to do over time is to get boroughs and friends groups to record how much time they are spending in volunteering, and also the numbers, because that can be converted into a numerical figure that can be counted as gift in kind, and it says volumes to the politicians and everyone who has a vested interest in our green spaces. And over time, we're seeing more and more of that data collected. And I think that's something going forward will be a great thing to do. And another thing of the key ingredients is it's down to people, and often individuals. And I take my hat off to the many individuals who have given their time, sacrificed so much to build up their friends groups. And but they are vulnerable, because if that person disappears, moves away, dies or whatever, then sometimes the friends groups are quite vulnerable to folding. And so I really encourage friends groups to think about succession planning, and also to involve young people more and more. So I just want to say, well done. And we will continue to collaborate and work with the Friends Groups Network, with CPRE London and Go Parks, and leading into National Park City and the initiatives that they have. So I'll hand over to Mark.
Thanks so much, Tony. And it is of course the case that everywhere is different, and I've tried for many years to create a friends group around my local park and failed quite badly. And I know through my own experience that it's not easy. Some areas seem to have more people that are available for volunteering or inclined to volunteer, I guess, and some areas just aren't like that, or I'm just not the right person. Maybe you never really know, but it's there are different things that different groups need, I think is really the case, and there's no one size fits all. But certainly knowing that there are other groups around that I can talk to is always a good thing. So we're now going to hear from Mark Cridge from the London National Park City Foundation, who the London National Park City has always been a supporter, and we feel like we're part of the London National Park City movement. And really, I think the point about this is that we know that friends groups are not the only green space volunteers out there. There are a lot of people who do things individually or who don't do things as part of friends groups, and that those people are part of the movement as well. And so it's really important that we're all kind of joined up with that too. And so yeah, hopefully Mark can tell us a bit about how that works. Over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Alice, and thanks, Tony and Dave. It's just really fascinating. I just want to echo Tony's comments and Dave's really, and just how wonderful it is to see such growth. I mean, I've been involved in National Park City for almost a year now, and one thing I've noted is, so I have a very awake Jack Russell about 10 centimetres away from me, so if the grunting and snarling is not for me, I might add, so apologies for that. So the one thing that's really struck me is the goodwill and the passion and just the camaraderie that and I think the friends, those people involved in friends groups and others are really sort of testament to that. And I think the thing that I'm really fascinated in personally, and one of the things that's drawn me to National Park City, and I'll talk about some of the things we do at National Park City briefly in a moment, but the motivations for someone to volunteer, and equally the barriers that might be in place that might stop someone volunteering, especially on a sort of regular basis. Because I think we all know having a volunteer who comes once and does some weeding or bulb planting, fantastic. But you really need that core group of people who are there, come rain, come shine, every week, every weekend, who are the real sort of mainstay. And that's obviously for a lot of people with busy lives, family commitments, all sorts of concerns, that can be a real challenge. And so when you find those people, being able to hold on to them and celebrate them and give them this as much support as possible. But also making sure we don't put too many barriers in place as well. And I think for a lot of people, I think Dave, you mentioned just in regard to the struggle to find people to form the committees, because what we certainly find in National Park City is people want to get their hands dirty and get outside and so on. They don't necessarily want to bring their day job to the to their volunteering in all cases, So it's been able to have the myriad ways for people to get involved and recognizing that there's a diversity of ways that people need to get involved and different ways people can contribute. And I think where certainly I've seen anecdotally from the conversations I've had with those councils that have these officers either part-time or kind of just spending a portion of their effort to support friends groups, anything they can do to ease the bureaucracy, I guess, if that's the right phrase, but to ease the overheads or give support where there is really necessary protections and so on to be put in place. So there's that building the capability and capacity of friends groups is a really important tangible role for councils and other civil society groups to be able to help to ease the burden, make it more possible for more people to get involved. And then the final thing I would say is really about diversity of participation from different groups. I mean, Tony mentioned more young people. You're creating routes where if you're involved in membership organisations, should we be getting, if people do the Duke of Edinburgh, should a portion of that be spending time on friends groups? I don't know, it's kind of how can we weave together different sort of membership organisations and create paths for ongoing volunteering, where friends groups are really seen as a really viable route for people to sort of get involved closer to home. What we certainly try and do with National Park City is our core or sort of headline volunteer program is our ranger network, and what we do with that is we really seek people who are really already quite active within their community. Maybe they have an environmental day job or a specific set of skills they want to bring to a wider audience or get more people involved, but often those people are sort of a bit on their own, a bit isolated, and by being able to bring those very active people together and network them and grow that community of support across the whole of London, and that gives them more confidence and potentially access to more resources, formal and informal. I was down in Folkestone Road allotment last week, 2 weeks ago, around the coronation, and met one of our rangers, Katie Blake, and she was already an incredible woman, already a real sort of strong activist within the community. But I was talking to her, and she's been a ranger for a couple of years, and I think that the confidence it gave her just being recognised as a ranger and being the recognition of the time she's given and the experience she has and the importance she has within the community, that's really spurred her on to do far more than she would have thought otherwise. So being able to celebrate the fantastic, passionate people that are involved already, give them as much support, make it as easy as possible for more people to get involved. If National Park City can help in any small way to do that, we'd love to see that, be able to expand on that and support the great work that CPRE and London Friends Green Network and Parks for London are already doing. And if you haven't already, I certainly urge you to join our new community site, which just launched a couple of weeks ago. It's community.nationalparkcity.org, and that's an open space for everyone to share their events and activities that are happening across London, and really provide new ways to get more people from more diverse groups involved in the things that are happening across London.
That's great. Thanks so much, Mark. So I wanted to hear from people about what we think that we can do to kind of fill the gaps, I suppose. So we know that there are parts of London where the Friends Group movement isn't as strong as others, and what do we think can be done? So it'd be really interesting to hear your contributions from anybody. If you can have a think about that, I'm just going to show you what we're doing with our Go Parks London project briefly. So I'm just going to share my screen again, if I can, and show you how Go Parks London project works. So hopefully you can all see that. And you can see that if you go to the Go Parks London website, we've created a map, and you can go to a borough. And we found it works better at this level if you go into one borough or another, because if you just have something for the whole of London, it becomes very difficult. It's almost too big. So let's go to, where should we pick randomly? Harrow. And I think there's someone from Harrow here, not entirely random. And so if you wait a moment, you'll see that, hopefully, that you'll see that friends groups which have registered have created a page, so they have their own page, which is particularly useful for groups which don't have a website of their own or don't want to create a website of their own. And so you can see here in Harrow, there are lots and lots of groups which have registered, which is great. If you go to other boroughs, that's very different. But let's just go into one quickly. So let's go to this one. The Friends of the Belmont Nature Trail, picked at random. So they can say a bit about what you can do in their park, and if they have a social media feed, then we have it here. It looks like this one doesn't, so maybe I should try to find another one. Let's go to Alexandra Park. It's a big park, I think. Oh no. Oh yeah, so you've got the social media here. Facebook and anything else they have. You can see it shows what goes on at that park, and it links off to other information on other websites. So I mentioned the London Gardens Trust, which has historical information where it's available for parks. They have volunteers who collect that information, and you can also find out what's available on GiGL. That's the official data records for green space in London is held by GiGL, and so you can find out what's available through them as well. That gives you a little map and who the other groups are in the park, and so on. So that's one way that we support projects via our support friends groups via our Go Parks London project. I just wanted to show you something else quickly. So we also work with boroughs to run promotions campaigns. So we've created lots of images. So we've done this for every borough, even though we're not actually working with every borough at the moment, but we have these images ready for any boroughs which are interested in supporting and promoting volunteering and helping their friends groups to promote themselves. So let's go to Enfield, and you can start to see the types of images. So we have different shaped images for Facebook and for Instagram and so forth. And these images are just borough specific, let's say. So they're aimed at getting people to get active or to just relax and that kind of thing. And these images they're not just nice images which can be shared. You can use your own message and so forth. We help to share them, and they're available to boroughs as well to share as they wish. And we also have a number of general images which are images about volunteering, supporting or promoting volunteering. So these are really lovely pictures that friends groups send to us, and which we use to create images to promote volunteering more generally. So yeah, these are this is hopefully you might have seen some of these images from time to time on social media, if you're ever on social media, but they can be used obviously in newsletters or anything like that. So yeah, so that's what we're doing. As I said, we've got quite a lot of partnerships now, which is great. And so yeah, so I've got just looking for hands up now. So I've got Michael Ball. So would you like to, Michael, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thanks. Can you can hear me? You can't see me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm Michael Ball. I'm from Waterloo Community Development Group, and so based in Waterloo, and done stuff across Lambeth, and I'm also just become the convener for Just Space, which is a network of community groups across London, not just about open space, but open space is one of the things. I've set up 3 friends groups in 20 years, and the key is, for me, has always been about a campaign. There's always been an issue. There's always been a threat or a problem, and that is, people are gather together when there's a threat, and that's obvious. The real problem is that there's a really strong, insidious, slow, creeping threat. London's population has risen by 40% in the last 30 years. It's massive growth, almost unseen since Victorian times, from 6.8 million to 9.4 million people. So we have no new open space. So our parks need to accommodate 40% more users. And at the same time, our local authorities have obviously had a huge stripping of their cash. They have had, at least some boroughs have, many boroughs have, quite a lot of SIL money, which is Community Infrastructure Levy, through development. And that is available for parks and open spaces. It's in the hands of the local authority, and it's their decision. So it's really important that us friends are there in partnership with the local authorities, working with them, holding them tight, and trying to make sure this money comes, because that creeping 40% increase in population that's going to continue is not something that is necessarily in their faces in the same way as other things that they need to fund. So that's the first thing. The other thing is that in terms of threats, that it'd be good to use and get friends groups to raise the issue. Is that at the moment, with that 40% growth, you've got to have 40% more buildings to accommodate it, and those buildings cast shadows. And the overshadowing of open space is very poorly protected. At the moment, it's only protected in planning 2 hours a day for 50% of your space. So you can overshadow permanently, a developer can overshadow permanently a park or an open space, 50% of it. And the other 50%, he just has to leave it 2 hours of sunshine a day. The GLA at the moment are moving towards trying to improve on that. They've got some advice, some guidance, which is part of their general guidance on planning. It's not just specific to open space, but there's a piece about that, and they are moving towards improving it. And I think it's really important that we lobby, and this is a fantastic opportunity, a fantastic network to lobby the GLA to say, look, across London, we need to really protect sunlight coming to open space. We need those buildings, but we need to make sure that they're well designed so they don't cast terrible shadows on the open spaces that we have.
Thanks, Michael. So yeah, that's great. And congratulations on establishing those groups. And yes, I've noticed that that often groups do come together around an issue, but often stay together afterwards and become a group which is a real force for positive going into the future. So I'm not sure if we don't have any other hands up, then we'll maybe go back to Dave, who might have some other ideas for how we can support friends groups to grow. Obviously, we all feel quite strongly that friends groups need to come. You can't just kind of make them happen. They need to come from the ground up, as it were. But there's definitely things we can do to give them help, and there is very clearly a big difference between boroughs, or areas of London, I should say. So so we do feel that the onus is on us to try to plug those gaps. So yeah, maybe Dave, you could give us some thoughts on that.
Okay, I've just got a few notes of what people have said up to now. In terms of finances, local authorities are really struggling to fund their public services. Obviously, central government cuts over the last 10, 15 years. And I think building a good relationship between the community and local councils is important in terms of having a bit of an alliance for our public services. But secondly, that friends groups, the average nationally through statistics that we've developed nationally is about 1,000 hours per group per year. And that means that there's about 900,000 volunteer hours put in by London's friends groups, which is equivalent, calculated as 20 pounds an hour. That's about 18 million pounds of added value to our struggling park services across London. So I think that's to be appreciated. In terms of groups forming, someone said something about, I agree with what you said actually, Alice, that it's not always a threat. It can also be, that you want to start organising activities, because not many people are doing that in the park. But yeah, in the longer term, a group develops a whole range of different activities and becomes part of the whole maintenance and management and animation team for the green space. I think someone said something about sacrificing ourselves, that I don't see volunteering as sacrificing. If it's supported and valued, it should be empowering and enjoyable, and so on. So I think that we should see volunteering as something positive. Yeah, sorry, maybe it's an obvious comment, but I certainly am greatly empowered by the activities that I've been involved with. So in terms of support, it has been said, and it's absolutely right, every group, every site, every local borough is different, has its own characteristics, its own history, its own characters. But there is a fundamental, there must be a fundamental commitment to recognising the value of volunteering in general, but friends groups in particular, because friends groups do a colossal amount of volunteering compared to any other source in green spaces, and also to support that. And I think that's a relationship that takes time to development. It can be grants, it can be officer time, on-site walkabouts with the group so that they're engaged in every decision or maintenance issue. There's a whole lot of mechanisms for ensuring that a partnership isn't just words, but it's a reality on the ground. And as I said, it's a two-way relationship. The friends groups themselves also have to get used to working collaboratively with the local authorities, with the park services, not just as a kind of hecklers or moaning about what's not being done properly, but also being, part of that collaboration team, taking joint responsibility. So, yeah. Can I just say one other thing in terms of involving more people? In my local park, which is Lordship Rec in the centre of Tottenham, we have about 20 different user groups. Some of them are subgroups of the friends, like the litter picking group and the orchard field management team. But there's football teams, there's obviously the buildings, that we've got 2 buildings that are managed by community groups. So there's a whole mosaic of potential users. There's walking groups, there's parent and toddler groups and so on. So I think to get the most out of friends groups and the collaboration with the council, there should also be a kind of strategy at grassroots level to encourage the formation of new user groups for specific specialist interests, but also to get everybody collaborating at that site as well.
Thanks, Dave. And I think we always look to Haringey and Lordship Rec because it's been such a success, and but also always realise that we're all on a journey. So yeah. So if there are no more hands, then I'll then unless Tony or Mark would like to say, oh, we've got one more hand. Prince's Countryside Foundation is coming up. I'm not sure who you are, but please do speak.
Hello. Yeah. I'm sorry, this is my work Zoom account for some reason has cropped up rather than me. So my name is Helen Day, and I represent the Friends of South Park Gardens in Wimbledon. So we signed up to Go Park some probably about 18 months ago, 2 years ago. So we're part of that, and thank you for all the good work that you're doing to promote the Friends groups. I think that the main issue, or during your surveys, did you get any granularity behind whether or not how friends groups were actually set up, what type of legal structure they have? Because we're a CIO, a charity, and one of the issues that a lot of similar organisations have is actually recruiting trustees to take it into the next stage. So whilst that's not just particularly about sort of friends and groups, it's about how you actually ensure the succession plan for the future. And I wondered if that was anything that anybody else on the call had any experience of, trying to engender new blood onto trustee boards.
We didn't ask that question in particular. But I suspect that Dave will have looked into that, because not just for London, but nationally. So may be able to help with that. But Dave, rather than getting to, perhaps you could say something quickly, but then was it Helen? Sorry.
Yes.
But if you could somehow exchange your email via the chat with Dave, then he can certainly follow up on that. But Dave, do you have something very quickly to say on that?
Yes, I think that it has been said every group is different and its development is different, but there's 95% of friends groups are voluntary associations. I think probably 90% have constitutions, which are obviously you need for a bank account and so on. Getting people involved, well, this is the magic, challenge for everybody. How do you get people involved in community groups? It's much better if a group is formed organically by interested, concerned people in that green space, rather than a kind of top-down process. Oh, we're putting in a bid for some money for the lottery, so we need a friends group, and how are we going to create a friends group? If it comes from another source, the dynamics are wrong. So you want to encourage involvement and initiative at the site level, and of course we could talk for hours about how that could potentially be achieved, and also as I said earlier, not just membership but also the core. Building up a strong core is not for the faint-hearted. It takes a lot of time and effort and over a period of years. So yeah, good luck to everybody, and let's value the incredible achievements, and what has gone behind the scenes to achieve those is phenomenal.
I think you're muted, Alice.
Sorry, sorry, Helen, if you just put your email address in the chat now, then we can put you in touch with Dave if that's easier. So we just quickly hear from Ian and then Mark before 2 o'clock. That would be great. So Ian from Harrow.
Hi there. I think what I was going to say has just been said, actually. There's a great benefit we've discovered from developing groups organically. Harrow Parks Forum, we set ourselves a target of establishing 3 new groups a year. It got rather sidetracked during lockdown, but we're back on schedule again. And we've got a fairly sort of clear protocol of engaging with the local community, with local stakeholders, building the group over a series of public meetings. And I would, in our experience, we've always had problems with groups that have formed around either a single project or a single issue, in that when the issue, such as building on a site or whatever, goes away, the friends group tends to wither. And with regard to funding, we would always say you go group, project, funding, rather than going out and getting the funding and sort of following the philosophy of build it and they will come, because you don't tend to get the level of engagement, I think, in our experience at least.
Thanks, Ian. And I think, Harrow is, or the Harrow Parks Forum is kind of unique in having, in London, at least, in setting itself up to kind of actively try to grow the groups and the movement in the borough. We should probably have a whole seminar on that alone, on how you've gone about that. But yeah, let's hear from, we've got Ted as well. So we'll hear from Mark and then Ted, and then we might have to close.
Yeah, I'll just be exceptionally brief. I thought, just to reiterate Dave's point about the different types of groups involved in drawing that sort of coalition from sports and culture and arts and all the different so it's not just about the green space, and it's about all the kind of users of those spaces as well. I think that's a fantastic observation that many groups can learn from. And just one tiny technical point, there's from the way that groups are set up, there's quite a lot of development now in sort of innovative ways of providing effectively fiscal sponsorship for organisations. So there's a group called Open Collective where you can effectively use the Open Collective as a fiscal sponsor for your organisation. So you got all the benefits of being a charity or incorporated organisation without the necessary overhead. So it allows you to have a bank account and you operate as a functioning organisation. So any of those sort of innovative models that might help avoid the trustee trap, if you like, of setting up an organisation which is perhaps too big for what's needed is always welcome. But yeah, some fascinating points. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Mark. So Ted, I believe you're joining us from Bristol, is that right? You need to unmute. Yes, great.
I am. Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So thank you very much for this report and presentation. Very interesting. Lots of stuff I feel very familiar with, and I'm sure we are in Bristol. In terms of the learning, I just wondered, the last bit of conversation got me thinking about the role, what we are as a small group, and how the kind of network of what happens in communities works. And I wondered how significant local community centres or locality or community anchor organisations or whatever you want to call them are or have been in the London experience. Is that part of your research in kind of stimulating or supporting friends groups? And forgive me if I've missed that comment already.
That's a really interesting question, and I think that there has been no deliberate, coherent approach apart from to create a network and to encourage groups to come together as forums within a local authority area, and some have done that very differently to others. I don't know if either Dave or Tony would have anything to add to that, but it is a really interesting question. And Harrow, as I say, has a really interesting approach, which is not something that that we have ourselves promoted, or they just did it themselves, but it's certainly something that others might definitely be interested to learn about. Dave, are you still with us? Or
yeah, I don't know if you can hear me, but I can barely hear you because I'm on my phone.
We can hear you.
Okay, I just want to say something. I didn't quite get the full question, but in our London meetings, which are regular every couple of months, we also invite other London-wide organisations such as the London Parks and Gardens Trust and Parks for London, Habitats and Heritage and so on, TCV. There are a range of other organisations that support, obviously, green spaces generally, but friends groups in particular. And it seems to be a key mechanism for getting links between the grassroots and those London-wide organisations. And each of those organisations offers something different. I don't know if that answers the question, but probably we could talk all day about, how everyone can work together and how we can support the grassroots. So
is that okay, Ted? I'm not sure if you're on mute. Can't hear. Sorry, we can't hear you, but
okay, so yes, I mean, the reason why I come to that is because in a way I don't come at all from the parks world, and here I am part of a parks group. I come to it through different routes, and most of the people I know, it's just a part of our life, and we don't kind of we've in a sense we've assumed parks, haven't we? So I just think that there's so much. Yeah, it's difficult. It's thinly spread, but there is capacity in some communities, at least, where kind of organisational stuff can take place, where people can do sill bids and all sorts of other things like that, and or store tools, and all the way from one bit to the other, be volunteer or organisers and cover the health and safety. There's a whole number of things that is quite a barrier for ordinary organisations. But if a locally respected development trust or whatever you want to call it can take on that role, that might help kind of, and also they can bring in people because they might run older people's groups or youth groups or whatever, and you got the activity, not necessarily the formal structure comes out of that directly, but you've got the activity, and so kind of a large chunk of the purpose might be fulfilled, and we could build on that. It's just a thought. I just wondered if there's any experience on that, but I come in very late, and I just want to say thank you very much. It's really very fruitful for me, this discussion.
Well, I think that's I mean, I think that's a really interesting point to finish on, and I think there are probably ways to support the growing of the movement in those areas, and that is the ways that you've suggested through existing organisations which have some capacity and understanding to, you know, to do the difficult bits while those local, perhaps a few volunteers just do you know, the actual, say, for instance, bulb planting or whatever it is, then that may well be a way to help grow the movement in those areas. So yeah, so that's really great. And we're just over 2 o'clock now, so I'm going to wrap up. And so it's really just to say, please do read the report yourselves, but also please do, in particular, show the back pages, which is where all of the reports from Friends Group. So Friends Group 69, I think Friends Groups gave us, you know, help to show the extraordinary breadth of things that they do and help with and achieve. And so just showing those, I think, to either councillors or to fellow Friends Groups or to anyone in the community who might be interested or able to help, I think is just there as a resource. So definitely encourage people to use the report as much as possible. Yeah, that's about it for today, I think, unless anyone has any more to say. We're going to say goodbye, and we'll pick up on some of those issues that you raised. Thanks very much for coming. Goodbye.